This is Shel from Paper Octio Studio, and today I'm sharing a quick art journal page that I did for Color Me Positive Week 10. And if you're interested in that Facebook group that gives prompts every week, which I seem to be missing most of them, um, I will leave the link below and you can join. So, the quote for this week 10 really inspired me. I really thought it was an excellent quote. Every piece of you is a burst of something beautiful. The week was about beauty, and not necessarily physical beauty, but just the beauty that each person has inside them. And I thought that was really a positive thing to art journal about. Also, the challenge for the week was to use flowers, and you know I love flowers and bright colors. And so I decided to go ahead and do week 10, but I was in a hurry, so this is a quick one. It's not perfect. I didn't fuss. I just did it and I was done, which is what you're supposed to do in art journaling, which I tend to overfuss. I got some new inks. They're Bombay India inks, and I got them for my birthday. My best friend has figured out that what I really love the most in the way of presents is art stuff, and I have an Amazon wish list type thing that when I see something that I want to try out, I put it on the list. And she goes and she gets me stuff. So she ordered these and she knew that my birthday was coming, so they're a birthday gift. And what I think is interesting about the India inks and the reason that I wanted to try them is that they seem to behave like watercolors, like you could really do an actual watercolor with them. But once it's dry, it's permanent because India ink is permanent. It's not going to react again with water. So I wanted to give them a try. So I gessoed my page first because I didn't want a bunch of absorption, and I also knew I was going to make a big wet mess, so I put a piece of masking tape in the crease of the pages so that they wouldn't bleed through to the other pages. There's still several more pages in this book, and it's already hard to work on because it's getting really fat really fast. That's what happens with art journals, and I'm not sure what the solution to that is, but this is the Small Dilutions journal, and I like the paper in it, so I'm going to keep working in it. So I'm just using a watercolor brush and plenty of water. You saw me spray it at the beginning, and then I'm also dipping my brush in water as well. And I am getting a bit of pooling on that right hand side, which I keep soaking up, but it keeps pooling because there's a divot there that all the water seems to want to run into. But I'm just making quick messy flowers with these colors. Um, Nothing fancy. I'm creating a burst of color, a burst of flowers that are going to be bursting out. And then I left this part in because I wanted you to see what happens when you put it on untreated paper. I was just using up the ink because I don't want to waste it. On that piece of mixed media paper that has no gesso on it, I thought it was very interesting how the turquoise kind of bursted into little starburst with the water. Very pretty. So I've got me some cool paper. And then this is a old piece of dictionary paper that is untreated as well, but it didn't do the same thing on that paper. So I had to smear it around. So I just left that in because it was kind of the first of experiments with the types of ink that are new to me. The next thing I did was get out my DecoArts Media ink sprays. Now, these ink sprays don't react with water. Once they dry, they're permanent. So I wanted to use those on my page because, who knows? I knew I was going to paint over it at some point, and I didn't want a bunch of smeary, icky mess. And so I just decided to use everything that's very permanent. And I've got a couple stencils, and they're both from Crafter's Workshop, I believe. And I'm spraying this orange one. It's brand new, never been used, and it doesn't spray. So I'm going to have to figure out what the problem is with that and maybe contact DecoArt and say, hey, your spray isn't spraying. Can you send me a new sprayer? Which they probably will because they're a good company. So I turn over the stencils and just kind of like get the excess off. And this might be looking like it's just getting way too busy, which it is busy, but in person it looks like an explosion of spring flowers, which is what we're having here in Arizona. There are pink and orange and yellow. There are flowers everywhere along the sides, which people would call them weeds, not necessarily flowers, but to me they're flowers. They're beautiful, and I love to see them. I love to see the bright colors that Arizona produces in the spring. Now I'm stamping some flowers, and I started out with black archival ink with that very sketchy flower, and then I used the blue ink with the kind of rose shape. And now I'm using some white paint and a sponge brush to apply it, and I just dab, 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 dab the white, titanium white heavy body acrylic to make some white flowers to kind of break up that. When I sprayed the dioxazine purple ink spray, it got kind of dark on that one side. That's one dark color, I tell you. Then splatters with the excess white, because splatters, I mean, what else can you say? And now I'm using my Stabilo All pencil, the black, to draw a little quick face with some hair. Very quick, very primitive, nothing fancy at all. And of course, we all know that the Stabilo is extremely water reactive, and so I'm going to have to be careful when I go to paint. And that does give me a little bit of trouble, but it also gives me, a little bit of shading, automatic shading. So I'm not, I did that on purpose. I mean, it was intentional to draw with that. And then I'm just going over the face area and neck area with white gesso to kind of give me a first layer of skin tone and calm down some of that crazy riot of color that's in the background. It's going to require more than one layer, obviously. It doesn't cover up instantly. And I am smearing some of that Stabilo, as you can see, and making a very hideous look at the moment. But don't worry, it will get better. It's hideous ugly right now, but it'll get better, I promise. So what I was thinking about was how everybody has beauty inside, and that's represented by the bright colors and the flowers. And I'm going to leave a lot of that visible, as you can see, in her eyes and her mouth, and then the hair is going to have all that riotous flowery color visible. So I was wondering to myself the other day as I was watching another artist, I think you pronounce her name Eleni, or maybe Eleni, I'm not sure. But anyway, she does beautiful faces, and she did a male face. And I thought to myself, why are we always painting pretty little girls? Why don't we paint old people and fat people and, male people? I mean, why don't we paint more male people? That is an interesting question, and one that I need to think about some before I figure out what I think the reason is. But we as humans do seem to like beauty, and we do seem to equate young, supple skin with no wrinkles and, thin little wispy girls as being beautiful. I don't know if that's because of society training us to think that, or if it's just a natural selection process of, selecting the young fertile person, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know, but it's interesting how so many people love to paint faces, and they all seem to be female, young, pretty faces. It's interesting. There's not very many people out there that are painting what society considers to be the unattractive. I don't know. It's interesting. I think about sociology quite a bit, so I'm just weird like that. Anyway, so as you saw, I painted in all the background in a blue, which I mixed London blue, or what's it called, postbox blue or London blue? I don't know. Anyway, that Dylusions blue color with some white to lighten it up a little bit. In hindsight, I might have wanted to add some glazing medium to that and made it more of a glaze so that it wasn't opaque, just to let a little bit of the background show through. But I didn't think of it at the time. I'm not sure what the result would have been. It might have been interesting. It might have been just too busy. Don't know, but if it's thought. Maybe next time I do this, I'll do a glaze instead and just see what it looks like. Then I took some portrait pink, which is way too pink, and a little bit of Titan Buff and mix those two together to make a skin tone to go over that white skin tone and completely cover up all the pattern in the background. So that's my second layer of acrylic. And then I got out a little bit of brown to just make some shadows with acrylic, but I end up pretty much just doing that with watercolor crayons instead. Maybe I thought I was going to paint the whole thing in acrylic. I'm not sure what I was thinking. And white for highlights, of course. It's shiny because it's wet, and so it's hard to see what I'm doing. I'm getting a lot of reflection. I really don't know what to do about that. There's, the lights are there and they reflect, and that's what lights do. So once I gave it a good dry, then I decided to go and do some shading around her hair tentacles. I think I still have octopuses on the brain. They kind of look like tentacles. She's got an octopus on her head. But it is what it is. Anyway, that's the Stabilo All pencil, which is reacting with the water in my water barrel brush. And I'm just kind of smearing it around and giving a little bit of depth and shadows. Because you know that pencil's there and you know it's going to smear, so you might as well just go ahead and smear it. That's why. Then I have to sharpen my Stabilo All pencil so I can go in and do some detail work, because her face really has no detail up to this point except for a couple weird looking blobs. Figured I made her make the blobs into something. That was my plan, and I'm sticking to it. Oh. By the time you see this, I will be on a trip for my birthday. I'm doing everything in advance, and it's making me tired. You can tell by all the yawning. But I can't disappoint all you peeps. You might miss me if I was gone, right? Where is Shel and her videos? I think I've become a YouTube slave. I don't know. It's weird. It's all new to me. I don't know. So after I do the detailing with the black Stabilo, then I go in and do some whites for the whites of her eyes with a white Posca pen, and then a little bit of pupils with a black Posca pen. And now I've got my Neocolor 2 watercolor crayons, and I'm going to go over and make some shadows here with the terracotta color. I like that color a lot, the terracotta color. Maybe because I live in the Southwest. I don't know. Am I obligated to like terracotta because I live in the Southwest? Maybe. Maybe. I almost feel like I have nothing to say and maybe I should turn on music, but it just sounds like a lot of work. So I add some pink to her cheeks, and then I'm going to blend that with some acrylic. And it's a little bit too white, but I'll add the pink back in again eventually. The reason that I blend with watered down acrylic is because that seals in the watercolor crayon. Otherwise it would be continually water reactive. So I do tend to do that. You could also blend it with a clear medium, like a matte medium or something like that. Glazing medium, varnish. I just tend to use the white acrylic because it's right there by my desk on the card and it's easy to get, and I don't know, it seems like it helps me blend a little bit. It makes the lines less harsh. So I'm just continuing to add layers to her face. This is not perfect by any means. There's much more work I could have done to it, but like I said, I was in a hurry. I had a lunch date with my mother I needed to get the whole page finished. I added just a touch of color to her lips without completely obscuring the flowers underneath. I was trying to leave the flower pattern in her eyes and in her mouth. But I did add a little bit of color to both those things. The lights of her eyes. Then I decided that that big blue background was too big and blue, so I got the stamp back out and I stamped some flowers back over it with my archival black ink. And I think that helped. Made some splatters with my white and with my black Posca pins. If you just shake them and flick them, they splatter out. And then I also added a little bit of color with the orange and the yellow Posca pins. Kind of hard to see, but it's there. And then my final touch is to add the quote for the week at Color Me Positive, which is what inspired the entire page. So got to get that on there. This is printed out with my inkjet printer. I didn't seal it. I probably should have, but I didn't. So the black ink smears slightly, but it doesn't bother me. I'm applying it with some gel matte gluey medium stuff. A little bit of pencil around the edge, and bam, you're done. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please, do all the things. And that's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.